Does nothing describe summer better than killer sharks? Deep Blue Sea, the film that gave us the LL Cool J classic Deepest Bluest. The movie that made Thomas Jane a household name and hero/killer of super intelligent sharks. And the best damn Samuel L. Jackson speech ever.
We're going to pull together and we're going to find a way to get out of here.
Yup, we're swimming out deep today with Deep Blue Sea on today's Awfully Good. Sharks, the ever-popular animals in the When Nature Attacks subgenre. Mix them with a bit of Mad Scientist and add a whole lot of Rennie Harlin's filmmaking style, and what do you get? Well, Deep Blue Sea, of course. The film cost $60 million and made $165 million, so it was definitely a hit. Maybe even a bit of a surprise to some. I mean, when was the last successful killer shark movie? That being said, this film is insane. Balls to the wall with its lunacy that somehow competed for blockbuster status. It's both incredibly entertaining and, yes, of course, incredibly stupid. I mean, problem-solving CGI sharks? Do I even need to say more? So what exactly is this movie about? Well, the short of it is that a scientist, Dr. Susan McAllister, is doing research for an Alzheimer's disease cure and working in a facility in the middle of the ocean. Why not a tank built somewhere on land? You know, so shark madness can happen. Stop thinking logically. Get that logic out of here. They are using the brains of sharks in hope of finding a cure. One day she has to show what she's doing to her financiers, so one of them comes for a visit. During this visit, the weather goes nuts, we get a Jurassic Park style of malfunction, and the sharks decide to go on a bit of a hunt. But we'll get back to all that schlocky glory soon. To be more precise, the film opens on a pair of couples on a vessel out at sea. There they get attacked by a shark who basically destroys said vessel. Suddenly, Thomas Jane appears as Carter and gets the shark under control. As vast as the sea is, the fact that Thomas Jane just comes out of nowhere really just makes this amazing. Cut to Los Angeles, a scientist played by Saffron Burrows is explaining her research to a couple of men in suits, one of them being Samuel L. Jackson. Oh, and Ronnie Cox is there too, but he doesn't say a goddamn word. She invites them to come to her facility to better understand her work. So Sam Jackson joins her and they fly to the facility. And I guess she happens to be a pilot? Okay then. Once in the middle of the ocean, within Aquatica, because, you know, that's its name, we get to the point where she starts explaining what they do, and we get to meet the crew. Or I mean, those that conveniently don't go home for the weekend. I love that this high-tech research facility in the middle of the ocean keeps normal office hours. I mean, shit, even I work the weekends. Then we see Carter in the water, swimming with sharks. You know, because how else are we gonna know that he's a shark badass? He's pretty much an ocean version of the hunter in Jurassic Park. He manages to get a car plate out of the shark's teeth, and she doesn't eat him in return. We get even more explaining and show and tell here. The rest of the crew leaves for the weekend. You know, gotta make sure there's not that many people on the sharks menu. We then get to meet the doctor, Jim Whitlock, played by Stellan Skarsgård, as he's pissing into the wind. No, really. Then we get the best character in the whole movie, Tom Scoggins, played by Michael Rapaport.
Who are you gonna trust? Me. That's who. You trust me. You know why? Because I'm trustworthy.
The shit this guy says. Back to the story, we get lots of exposition, lots of exploration of underwater locations. Gotta get it all out there before the action really starts. Now it's time for LL Cool J's Preacher, the cook with a foul-mouthed bird.
You got a big fat butt.
He and the bird are best friends because it's the 90s and of course they are. Test audiences loved Preacher so much that as the movie goes on, he essentially becomes the main character. But back to before the chaos, we've got feeding time and the sharks are restless. Carter's going to them, Tom is feeding them. The spooky feels are established on the surface. Flair, surprise! It's someone's birthday! Because how else are we gonna get these people talking like normal people?
You like the tunes there, Bree?
The music is very 90s, but God, do I miss the fact that this thing still had a damn melody. I don't care how lame it may sound. There's drunken science and shark talk, lots of foreshadowing in this movie. I mean, they really aren't trying to be coy.
Sharks are the oldest creatures on the planet, from a time when the world was just flesh and teeth.
They are laying it all out, just in case you don't think that the sharks are gonna go crazy at some point. But this is when we're finally in for the main event. They've got to get the shark in to be able to take out the brain juice that can then cure Alzheimer's. While Carter is in the midst of trying to get one of the sharks for the experiment, we get some wonderful moments like the sharks recognizing guns and swimming backwards. Oh my god. The sharks then even take down some of the cameras. We even get Carter leaving the safety of the cage just to prove how much of a badass he is. But, I mean, everything's a-okay. He brings the shark in and the experiment is ready to begin. We're able to see that the brain juices are able to cure Alzheimer's because of, lightning and science. So Dr. Whitlock goes for a celebratory smoke, but no one told him about this shark's sneak attack ability because before you know it, he loses an arm for his negligence. His girlfriend / #1 fan is in shock, maybe even more shocked than he is. They manage to get him out as a group and drop the shark back into the water. This is when, after a crazy sequence of events, Whitlock is then dropped back in the water with the massive shark. The way this lady goes flying during the helicopter explosion, peak Rennie Harlan. The crew is back in the lab trying to get their wits together when suddenly there's something coming towards them from the big window. Could it be? Yes, it's the doctor on his gurney, being forcefully brought back by a shark. Jesus Christ, these sharks are smart. The shark is able to throw the doctor into the glass, which breaks it, and total chaos ensues. Thankfully, Carter comes to the rescue, and he reads the map and devises a plan. They go down to go up. Sure, makes sense, why not? There we go back to Preacher and his bird. They're trying to leave, but get flooded in. Back to the team. A shark is trying to break down the door. They're in danger, which is a strong recurring theme here. The sharks want to eat them. Surprise, surprise. They're thankfully able to find a way into the shaft, and this blonde lady is losing her shit. Back to the Preacher. He's in danger. There's a shark that is definitely after him. He heads back to his kitchen. We get a few minutes with the others, but who cares? How is Preacher going to get out of this? It gets tense. There's some chasing, some climbing. That damn insult bird again. Oh, well, that does away with that. Preacher ends up in his own oven, noting how ironic it is. The shark turns the oven on and Preacher is seemingly going to get cooked alive.
Is it happening?
But thankfully he uses his chefly wits and escapes through the top, blowing the shark up in the process. Phew! Our group is getting ready for a swim. There's arguing, there's nonsense, and then Sam Jackson gives his big speech, rallying the troops, and then chomp! Let's just take a moment to appreciate how fucking cool it was to experience this for the first time. It's probably the best shark kill in history, but it also means that swimming is out of the question now, huh? They need a new plan, and they get going to the other shaft that leads up and down. They have some water issues, of course some shark issues, and then the blonde lady gets eaten. Yeah, can't say that I'm gonna miss her. And just when it seems like they're all out of options, Preacher comes from above and helps them out. The team is officially all together. They take a bit of a detour so they can get data from Saffron Burrow's locker. This leads to her killing a shark with electricity. Not before she strips down to her underwear though. Again, classic Rennie Harlan. We unfortunately lose Scoggins, but Preacher and Carter reunite and they're finally able to get their plan in motion. They're going to use some fire extinguishers to distract the sharks and so that they can finally get to the surface. It kind of works, but unfortunately Preacher gets attacked. But he proves to be a badass and stabs the shark with his crucifix. Now we're finally on to the final battle, the redemption, the will they make it moment. Carter once again has the plan, and as the shark is attacking the fence, he goes to it and the scientist uses herself as bait so he can spear it. She ends up dead, because of course that bitch needed to die, and now Carter's going on the ride of his life. And Preacher needs to make sure he hits this shark. So of course he hits Carter. But they make it work and they're able to electrify the spear and boom goes the shark. That is one bloody mess. Carter shows up and then Preacher says what we're all thinking.
Are you sure it was just 3 sharks?
Thankfully, the crew boat with the next shift of people shows up, and that's when we get that wonderful ending track by LL Cool J. So let's make this a party and get down to brass tacks. And what's a party without a few drinks? So here are some awfully good drinking games. The old fashioned. You'll need sugar, bitters, and water muddled together. Add some whiskey, an orange peel slice, and a cherry on top. You can use rye for this, but goddamn, have some class and go for some bourbon. This should last you a bit, but not too long, as our suggestion is to sip every time you see some old tech. While the film may have had some of the most modern technology while it was filmed, this stuff is pretty damn old now, so sip carefully. The Shark Bite. You've seen these, all blue and with a shark gummy on top with what looks like blood on the top. Make your favorite drink that has blue curacao, serve on ice, add a shark gummy, and drop of either food coloring, grenadine, or even a few red candies. This one should be sipped on anytime the sharks are on screen. The Killer Shark. Grab your favorite hard liquor to have as shots and take a shot every time someone gets killed. Surprisingly, the kill count by the way of shark is not as high as expected, so while you should pace yourself and be safe, this isn't too terrible in terms of shot count. Beer My Hero. Get some choice beer and drink a bit every time Carter, aka Thomas Jane, saves or tries to save someone. Sometimes even more than one person at a time. This includes any time that he's the man with the plan. Once you're all tipsy, you may want to take a little break and play around a trivia, so let's get going. Thomas Jane is a real-life badass. He swam with a real shark for a scene in the movie and got it done in one take. This comes to us from Rennie Harlan, director of films such as Cliffhanger, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and Die Hard 2. The plate dislodged by Carter from the shark's teeth is the same as the one in Jaws. The mini submarine shown in the film is the same as in Sphere, released 1 year prior. Some of the slipping and falling that occurs in the action scenes wasn't actually scripted, but it looked natural, so they kept it. It took 14 different visual effects companies to bring the sharks to life. The seaplane used here is the same as the one used in 6 Days, 7 Nights, released the prior year. The sharks are only on screen for a total of 5 minutes. So what's our verdict here? It's madness. There are technically only 3 sharks, which is actually more than we usually get in these films, especially in the 90s. And the film is really dated with its tech and the CGI. But thankfully, both of these are not really that important to the story. The main part is watching people try to survive being hunted by these super intelligent sharks. You know, the mix of when animals attack and mad scientist is just perfect here. With all of the above at play, why is this film awfully good? Well, it's a bit of a messy one, with science that is not exactly correct. Sure, the performances are good because the cast clearly wanted them to be. But a lot of the fun can be attributed to the man in the director's chair, Rennie Harlan. This film is nuttier than squirrel shit and then some, and he has so much to do with it. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you pay too much attention, but if you are willing to let go of those smaller, or Mako-sized, details, the film is a boatload of fun, and even better when you're watching it with a few others. Preferably with 1 or 2 that haven't seen it yet. This is top shelf awfully good content, one that needed to be done, one that everyone should watch at least once. So on a scale from Victor Salva to Roger Corman, this movie gets a 10 out of 10. because it is an absolute blast from beginning to end. And the fact that it gave us this Sam Jackson death will always maintain its status as awfully good royalty.